Mayor, City Commissioners. At the request of various city departments, the Purchasing and Contracting Services Department solicited formal bids for a multiple contract for demolition services for the City of Brownsville for condemned and dilapidated structures. These contracts will be awarded for a primary contractor, a secondary contractor, and a tertiary contractor. Levels should be determined on a unit cost basis, and will be with the lowest unit cost awarded per line item. Awarded contractors can participate only at one level. Should the level one or the primary contractor be unable to provide the requested work, then the secondary contractor will be called. And if the secondary contractor cannot provide that service, then we go to the tertiary. Now, the project milestones is a legal advertisement appeared in the Brownsville Herald 2 times, one September the 4th and September the 11th. Acknowledgements were subsequently received confirming participation by several contractors. A private meeting was conducted on Thursday, September 13, 2011. Sealed formal bids were opened for the subject project on October the 7th, 2011, and a total of 5 bids were received and tabulated by the Purchasing Department. Staff recommendation is to award a contract to multiple contractors for demolition services for condemned and dilapidated structures. And we have RLC Consulting Group of Brownsville, Texas. We have Rudy Martinez Hauling of Brownsville, Texas. Decorative Concrete Design of Brownsville, Texas. U.S. Hair Industries of Brownsville, Texas. And Valley American Contractors of Brownsville, Texas. This contract shall commence upon City Commission approval and shall expire February the 28th of the year 2013. And the City reserves the right to extend the contract for 2 additional 1-year periods. Funding for this project is available through each department operating budget. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions at this point.
Are you ready for my questions?
I'll try to.
Let's go.
Well, the only reason this item interests me was because one of the companies who will be on the rotation is called Valley American Contractors, owned by Mr. Escobedo, who also owns American Surveillance. So I was wondering what kind of experience all of these approved companies had, and which is why I requested references from you. I didn't receive them, so I did call all of these vendors, all 10 of them on this list, to see if in fact they had been contacted, and if in fact they did receive or give an acknowledgement on the bid documentation. Out of all of them, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 who told me that they had not been contacted.
5 of the contractors on the vendors list?
Yes.
Okay, what we do is we send out a fax. We also publish the package on the newspaper, and we have, as part of the bid package, an acknowledgement of receipt. Sometimes we don't get acknowledgements of receipt. Sometimes we get acknowledgements from vendors saying yes, we will participate, or no, we will not participate. And sometimes they let us know the reason why. Maybe because they're funding, they have it with another contract. Sometimes because they're not interested, but sometimes they just don't send us those acknowledgments most of the time.
Robert, do you have any way of verifying within your file that, in other words, if I'm sending out a bid or I'm sending out a piece of information, at least from my law office, if I want to make sure that someone has received it or I have sent it, I send it registered mail or some sort of way of verification. Do you have that in your file?
We do. What we do, Mayor, is we send the copy of the advertisement, the one that we send out to the newspaper, and we send it via fax. Together with the fax, we have the acknowledgement that it recreates when we send it out through our system, through the copier that we have, which is a multifunctional. And also what we have is we post the packages online through the city website. So when vendors download the package, the responsibility is also to return the acknowledgement of receipt. So like that we know who's participating. Not necessarily the contractors that you see on this vendor list have access to the information. That information is available to everybody because it's online. But to answer your question, sometimes it is hard to receive acknowledgments from vendors. Sometimes it is verbally when they go to the office, we tell them also verbally and they say, yeah, we will participate. Sometimes they come to the private meeting, sometimes they don't. Sometimes we even have vendors that didn't attend the meetings to submit a bid package.
Okay, but just maybe if I could, Robert, if I were to go back through your file, though, what you're trying to tell me is that you can show me the paper and the dates on which it was published. That's one thing.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
You can show me that you can go back to the website and you can prove to me that it's been on the website for
Yes, sir.
certain days, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then on certain occasions, you can tell me that you faxed it to some folks who had a fax machine that you had access to,
Mm-hmm.
and those you can prove. Okay, is that the extent of the way you're going to be able to prove that you have
That's
public
correct.
notice?
That's correct.
So, I have a, are you done with your question? Well, because it just says 9 acknowledgements were subsequently
Well, there's-
received, confirming receipt of bid documentation, and then you had just said that you don't receive them from everybody, so.
Let me go back to this. I know there's a mistake on number 2 where it says 8 contractors were represented at the private meeting. Actually, there were 5. 5 that attended the private meeting because that's what I have on the signing sheet. So that's the mistake that I have on the analysis on number 2. But going back to the acknowledgments of vendors, I know that 2 of these companies listed, we received the not the acknowledgement, but the copy back where it says that they're no longer in business. That the numbers that they have didn't answer sometimes. And what happens sometimes, the issue that I have, sometimes vendors, when they change numbers, most of the time they go to the office or they go online and they change their information. Sometimes they don't. So it's what I tell the vendors at the private meeting is that it is their responsibility to look on the website and download the addendums and make sure that they look into the website every week to find out what projects are available for them to participate.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are the vendors, out of the 10 vendors, is there a list that you have that you
It's a list.
normally use those vendors?
It's a list that is created on vendors that have participated on previous demolitions.
And you normally just send the notices to them, or what's I guess what I'm asking is, what is the procedure, and is there something
The procedure under local government code, it says that if we need to at least we need to publish the ad on the newspaper twice. That's the first thing. Number 2, we need to acknowledge vendors of the bid. In this case, we do have a website where we post the bid, and it's available to anybody. I mean, if you have access to the internet, you can access the information, you can download it, you can attend the private meeting. So that's how we have communications with vendors. And in most of the cases, the vendors that participated on this particular bid are vendors that are continuously visiting the department saying what's available, we need to work.
Okay, and out of those vendors, are the ones that are on the list, are they pre-qualified?
Well, most of the vendors that you see in here have done business with the city, have done
No, I'm
construction
asking
work.
on your vendor list.
Oh.
Those that are on the vendor list, are they pre-qualified?
Yes, most of them are pre-qualified. There's some that are new, that never done business with the city. When that happens, what we do is we call sometimes the county or the school district if they have done previous work for them, and that's how we qualify.
So you actively ask for references regarding jobs that they've done with other entities. But is there, in your procedures, is there a mechanism in there whereby you pre-qualify? Are we obligated, that's what I'm asking, are we obligated to pre-qualify the vendors?
We're not necessarily, it's not necessarily in most of the cases to go through that. It all depends on the scope of work that is going to be
Okay,
done.
for this scope of work, because I was noticing that it's different levels.
Yes.
And obviously, if one is not qualified to do the lower level of work, and then you have the medium level and then the higher.
But that was based on the cost, on price.
Right. but if they're not qualified, how do you know if they're qualified? That's what I'm asking.
Okay, the process is when we enter into a contract, let's say, let me give you an example. We have a new contractor that is new, that never done any demolition. The first thing they need to comply with, they need to have insurance, they need to have workers' compensation, general liability. They need to have the proper equipment. In other words, they cannot just go with a hammer and knock the house down. They need to have the proper equipment. That's one way of qualifying.
And the reason I'm asking for the pre-qualifications, I'm sorry, because obviously some of these contractors are not capable of doing all the jobs. And so my concern is, if we're going to put them on there, we need to be able to pre-qualify them so that we can at least be assured that they have the tools,
Yes.
the insurance coverage that's needed, and everything else. And so I think that's the important part of the pre-qualifying process. And I'm not sure that you're doing it here.
Well, like I mentioned it, in the past we have done business with most of these people. And what we do is we check on their work. Like the previous one I can tell you is U.S. Hair Industries of Brownsville, Texas. They did the previous demolition, and we had people from the health department and also people from the building inspections department checking on them, checking to make sure they have the proper equipment.